Well, President Trump sitting down with our own Lou Dobbs in an exclusive interview to discuss his pick to lead the Federal Reserve. Trump hinting that the current chair, Janet Yellen, won't be reappointed.
You like to make your own mark, which is maybe one of the things she's got a little bit against her. But I think she's terrific. We had a great talk, and we're obviously doing very well together. You look at the markets.
That's all true. Victoria Fernandez, Managing Director at Crossmark Global Investments, is here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good. Let's talk about this because, okay, if it's not going to be Janet Yellen, and he seemed to kind of intimate that he wants to make his own mark, the two names that we're hearing the most about right now are Fed Governor Jerome Powell, who's currently there, and then Stanford University economics professor John Taylor. Those seem to be the two leading names. What do you make of those two top picks?
Yeah, I think when you look at who's coming in, I mean, we never know, right? One day it's one person, the next day it's someone else. But I really don't think it's going to make a huge difference in the path of the Fed going forward. Because if we take a step back and look, previously when we had chairs like Volcker in there or Greenspan, the chair really had a much more leadership role in the sense of how their opinions led the rest of the committee. But if we look over time and we see Bernanke, we see Yellen, it's become much more of a consensus Fed. The other members of the committee seem to be more vocal. They really seem to collaborate much more on what's going on with their policy. So we may have a knee-jerk reaction if we have one of these gentlemen come in, especially if we have Taylor come in. People look at the Taylor rule. They assume that we're going to be a very rules-based Fed if he comes in. And really, if you look at what the formula says now, it would be about a 375 for the Fed funds rate. And that really makes investors nervous.
Wow.
But you have to go in and look and see. Right. You have to look and say, okay, we'll change the inflation expectations, change the unemployment non-inflationary rate. And that number actually comes down closer to about 2.5, which is closer to the neutral rate of about 2 that we're seeing. So I think regardless of who comes in, yes, we may have a knee-jerk reaction because they'll be a little more hawkish than Yellen, but the path of the Fed, I think, will stay, pretty much on the same path with slow rates moving higher.
That's really interesting you say that, and Jerome Powell would be stability, but John Taylor could bring in his own, guidance. That's interesting you say that. Really quick, let's talk about some of the sectors that have been moving the markets. Obviously, when it comes to interest rates and what the Fed does, that affects the housing sector. I know that that's one of the big sectors that you're focusing on. How do you advise your clients, in particular, in this kind of higher interest rate environment that we're entering into?
Sure. Well, the industrials are doing really well. We have multi-year high ISM manufacturing and non-manufacturing surveys coming out. Consumer sentiment is at like 13-year highs. So we definitely have room for the industrials to move. Now, that housing sector, I think there's a really interesting aspect to that, which is near and dear to our hearts here in Houston. We had home sales reported this week that were really strong. In Houston, they were especially strong on existing sales, mainly because we've had investors come in and really buy up a lot of the homes that have been flooded from the hurricane. And the wait right now is about 6 to 12 months for contractors to come in and do the repairs. So you really have some, pent-up demand that's building there to have in that housing sector. And I think you can make a play with companies that related to that construction and that remodeling.
That's great advice, Victoria. Really great. Thank you so much for being here and getting up so early Texas time. Really appreciate it.
No problem. It was a pleasure to be back with you.
All right. Yeah. It's